What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here with SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. We hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and we hope that you are enjoying the palindromes that are going on this week. That's right. Today is Thursday, January 1st, 2021. 1, 21, 20, 21. Forwards, backwards, same thing. That's what a palindrome is. I freak out about that stuff, so I hope that you are enjoying it as much as I am. It is time for our Cowboys midweek report here on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. We do want to say hello to all of our new and latest subscribers. We appreciate all of you. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe right here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. We put out a bunch of videos talking about the Cowboys, discussing the Dallas Cowboys, analyzing the Dallas Cowboys, fretting over the Dallas Cowboys. We have live streams, film reviews, all sorts of fun stuff. So we appreciate all of you who choose to make us part of your Cowboys fandom. Today, we're going to talk about something that I am sure we will all have equal and shared opinions on, and that is a few certain high-profile free agents when it comes to America's team and whether they should keep them for 2021 and beyond or perhaps let them walk. And of course, this free agency class for the Dallas Cowboys is headlined by none other than quarterback Dak Prescott. Let's take a look at the pending free agents for the Dallas Cowboys in 2021. We left off a couple. These are the notable names, the names that you need to know because we're trying to talk about the most important things. I know you got places to be. I know you got food to eat. Tonight is fried fish night in my household, so I am very excited about that. Thank you very much. But quarterback Dak Prescott is a pending free agent. Let's roll through this. We're going to go top to bottom, then move over to the second column. That's how you read this. Dak Prescott, Tyrone Crawford, Sean Lee, Andy Dalton, who started more games at quarterback for anybody this season. Goodness gracious, words are hard. Who started more games at quarterback this season than anybody else for the Dallas Cowboys. That's right. Boom. Nailed it. Cameron Irving, Joe Looney, Aldon Smith, Blake Bell, the Belldozer, LP Ladouceur, who has started more games as a Canadian in the NFL than anybody else in world history. Joe Thomas, the really versatile linebacker, special teams ace. Chidobe Awuzie, CJ Goodwin, Justin March, Jordan Lewis, Antoine Woods, Xavier Woods, Noah Brown, and surprising wide receiver star of the 2020 season, Cedric Wilson. Now, there are names here that are really debatable. There are some that it's, not debatable in a way that, the Cowboys probably going to move on, but there are names here that really make some sense. There are a few underrated names here that I think we should get to first, just kind of briefly. The first one here is CJ Goodwin. Doesn't get a whole lot of pomp and circumstance as far as being a normal NFL cornerback is concerned, but CJ Goodwin is a huge part of what the Dallas Cowboys do from a special teams standpoint. We saw them rise in Rick Gosselin's famed special teams rankings, 11th special teams group in the NFL. CJ, a very big part of that rise and that growth. Obviously, the Cowboys did not lose John Fossil to the Philadelphia Eagles. By the way, the Philadelphia Eagles do have a new head coach. ESPN's Adam Schefter reported on, what's today? Thursday? On Thursday that they are hiring Nick Sirianni. Not the easiest last name to pronounce, but Nick Sirianni, the former now Indianapolis Colts offensive coordinator, who was the Colts offensive coordinator under head coach Frank Reich, who was the Eagles offensive coordinator before Carson Wentz broke. So lots of weird full circle things happening there in Philly. But the important thing, John Fossil's not leaving, Kellen Moore's not leaving, so good for all of us. So I think CJ Goodwin stays. I think that's one of every coach kind of gets his guys, right? CJ Goodwin is a John Fossil guy, and I think is very important to the continued growth, the continued ascension, the continued overall just dialing in of the Cowboys special teams group in year 2 under Bones. That one I feel rather confident about. Also on the special teams front, this is a lot harder to predict because retirement could be a factor here, but LP Ladouceur, one of the best long snappers of all time. That's right, all time. Kind of forgotten. And LP's been doing this thing so long. By the way, he's super awesome because he has a name that is only 2 initials. Not biased at all here. CJ Goodwin is really cool, obviously. But LP Ladouceur played at Texas Stadium. All right, to put in proper perspective here, how long LP Ladouceur has been playing for the Dallas Cowboys. He played for them at Texas Stadium. I think some retirements are also things to watch. Obviously we're kind of, forecasting, predicting here. Tyrone Crawford could retire. I think that, there's been some murmurings about that. There's been some, whispers and stuff. I think Tyrone Crawford is a candidate to retire. And I think the most obvious name on this list to retire, and that is including LP Ladouceur, the most obvious names right up over here, if I could point in the right direction, Sean Lee. Sean Lee seems like slam dunk might be a little bit too aggressive of a way to put it, but like the most obvious name on this list to retire. Sean Lee, look, I'm not the person that likes to say Tony Romo should be the offensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. Jason Witten should be the tight ends coach of the Dallas Cowboys. DeMarcus Ware should coach the linebackers. I think that those are generally just, things people say. However, Sean Lee, I think, would make a fine coach. I think Sean Lee is kind of already a coach. Sean Lee, I happen to be a San Antonio Spurs fan as well, is very reminiscent to me of Tim Duncan's final days in a Spurs uniform, kind of already a coach, kind of, if you're a soccer fan, kind of one of those guys. Vincent Kompany a few years ago that's already doing the job and is going to leave to go, be the gaffer somewhere else. That's kind of who Sean Lee is in my mind. I think the most obvious name that is not going to be on the Cowboys next year in terms of this list is Andy Dalton. And I know that Andy didn't, impress a lot of people. I know that Andy had a really bad week 17. I knew he had the bad interception, everything. The reality is, even as recently as like 2 years ago, like the 2019 NFL draft when Kyler Murray went number one overall to the Arizona Cardinals. Daniel Jones went to the New York Giants. Dwayne Haskins, by the way, has a new job as of today. Shout out to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Dwayne Haskins went to the Washington football team. Even as recently as the 2019 season, it felt like just about every team in the NFL either had an established veteran quarterback or kind of an established star quarterback or a plan. It felt like there were very, very, very few teams in the NFL that didn't have like one iota of a plan at the position. And I think that if you look at the landscape of the league here and now today, I think that you can make a case that almost half of the NFL is in a position where they kind of need a quarterback. One of our writers at Blogging the Boys, Tom Ryle, wrote about this recently. He and Roy White discussed it on the latest episode of Riled Up. You can listen to that on the Blogging the Boys podcast network. Make sure you subscribe. We are available on all major podcast platforms. But yeah, and obviously some of these teams are going to, have some draft picks. The Jacksonville Jaguars and New York Jets in all likelihood are going to address their situations. Even if the Jets don't draft whoever you think they're going to draft, Justin Fields with the second overall pick, maybe they run it back with Sam Darnold, who knows? But the point is, there are some quarterback-needy teams that really, I think could be eyeing Andy Dalton, and that's why I think Andy Dalton has a legitimate job in 2021 that's not with the Dallas Cowboys. But so I think he's the most obvious to leave in terms of opportunities that are going to come elsewhere. I think there are a lot of players who are, obviously not going to return to the Cowboys because they didn't live up to, what everybody expected, what everybody wanted of them. Craig English says Xavier Woods needs to go. He is certainly a candidate that kind of fits that mold. Let's talk about, we're talking about quarterbacks. Something that nobody has any level of disagreement here on, Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is a pending free agent, played this past season, only 5 games, obviously, the 5th game he was hurt in, on the franchise tag, so that means he needs a new contract. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys are currently eligible to be in contract negotiations. The Cowboys have allowed a number of teams to beat them to negotiating long-term deals with their quarterbacks. We saw Jared Goff get a deal with the Rams. We saw Carson Wentz get a deal with the Eagles, and those are obviously the same draft class as Carson Wentz. We saw Patrick Mahomes get a deal. We saw Deshaun Watson get a deal. We saw Ryan Tannehill get a deal. We saw Russell Wilson get a new deal. Ben Roethlisberger. You could go on and on and on. All these people that have gotten new contracts with their teams, whether they were extensions or first big-time contracts, whatever the case may be. And we are now at a point here in 2021 where the quarterbacks drafted in 2018 are all eligible for contract extensions in their own right. The 3 that you need to know, Lamar Jackson, obviously going to get a big-time deal sooner rather than later. He already has an MVP on his mantle. Baker Mayfield, who took the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs this year, won a playoff game over a division rival, came really close to winning a second one and getting the Browns to the AFC Championship game. And, of course, the third quarterback is in the AFC title game, Josh Allen. So I would imagine that, any one or maybe all of those 3 quarterbacks are going to get some extensions with their clubs this offseason. Yes, it's fair to consider that this particular year, the salary cap is going to shrink as, impacted by COVID-19 and the pandemic and everything. But those are still factors that the Cowboys are up against because they have to get this done. Because if you cannot grasp this idea by now, I don't know if you are ever going to be able to. When it comes to the quarterback position, we'll put this thing up full screen because it needs to be seen by the whole world. The value only rises. These are the top quarterback contracts in the NFL at the moment in terms of APY, aka average per year. Patrick Mahomes is the clear outlier, right? For a long time, this whole business, no pun intended, has been whichever quarterback just got paid, the next quarterback gets a little bit more than him. Patrick Mahomes is going to be king of the hill for a while. So let's acknowledge right now, before we go even further down this rabbit hole, that nobody's touching Patrick Mahomes for some time. We're talking about everybody beneath him. But you see Dak Prescott, that $31.4 million mark was his franchise tag value in 2020. Carson Wentz got his deal, obviously before Dak Prescott, $32 million per year. Kirk Cousins actually signed a second deal, an extension with the Minnesota Vikings after the fully guaranteed value that he signed in 2018. But Kirk Cousins getting $33 million per year. Jared Goff gets $33.5. Aaron Rodgers gets $33.5. Ben Roethlisberger, as mentioned, $34. Russell Wilson, $35. And Deshaun Watson, who signed that deal with the Houston Texans that many people want to hold him to. I'm of the mindset, look, Deshaun, if you want to get out, but that's a whole different topic. Obviously got $39 million. Coming back here to the Dak thing for a second before we put this photo back up on the screen. A few years ago, it was reported by NFL Network's Shane Slater that, $40 million could be a value for Dak Prescott. And she just got laughed at. And the whole world laughed at that idea and said, there's no way Dak's going to get $40 million per year. Yeah, a few years ago, $40 million per year seemed like an inordinate amount. But look at this list. If you believe that the value only rises, welcome to Business 101. Shout out to my freshman business teacher for teaching me that very valuable lesson. If you look up at the values, what is one more than $39 million per year? It is $40 million. The floor for Dak Prescott's long-term extension with the Dallas Cowboys is very likely $40 million per year. What's more is if you look at these total guarantees, Jared Goff was the first quarterback to get over $110 million fully guaranteed. Obviously, Deshaun Watson topped that with over 111, but Russell Wilson has $107 million guaranteed. Aaron Rodgers almost has 100. And where people get hung up on this, all right, because people look at this list and they say, well, Dak's not as good as Aaron Rodgers. Dak's not as good as Russell Wilson. Dak's not as good as Deshaun Watson. Whatever. We could sit here and pick apart any one of those, particular comparisons all day long, but the reality isn't who he's better than. The reality is what is the market rate. And the market rate for franchise quarterbacks in today's NFL, as Raja says, not a fan of Goff, me neither. The reality is that Dak Prescott plays the most valuable position in all of sports in that he is a quarterback in the NFL. So what can we guarantee with that? We can guarantee that he's going to get somewhere over $110 million because that's the floor. Jared Goff got that. That is the floor. That is the starting point. The conversation doesn't begin until that is the bare minimum value. You are looking at, for Dak Prescott, something that is seemingly going to be at least for $40 million per year with at least a total guarantee of $110 million. I don't see any way in a practical and objective data-based world that Dak Prescott is getting less than that. And again, you get all these people who say, well, Dak Prescott's not that great. Dak Prescott's awesome. And you could debate whether he's better than Russell Wilson or whoever you want. But the reality is, you ever take a class that wasn't a letter grade, right? There was no A's, B's, C's, or D's, or even F's, right? It was just a pass-fail. This is a pass-fail proposition. When you are a quarterback in the NFL, it doesn't matter if you're an A+ or if you're a B-. As long as you are passing the class, so to speak, you are getting paid. Look at Dak Prescott. Obviously, he has now played 5 years in the NFL. He's won 42 games, has 106 career touchdowns, only 40 interceptions, a career 97.3 ratings. It's got a 66% completion percentage. Been to the Pro Bowl 2 times. I get it if you don't put a lot of stock in the Pro Bowl, but still, the reality is this dude has not only from a measurable standpoint cemented himself as a baller, but you look at every game the Cowboys played just about without him in 2020, they were a complete and total disaster. And they weren't just a complete and total disaster in terms of their on-field performance. Remember, like a week after Dak Prescott got hurt, there were reports about internal strife within the Cowboys, about players who were pissed off at the coaching staff. We heard Stephen Jones very famously, now a year and a half ago, referred to Ezekiel Elliott as the straw that stirs the drink. Star would have been a little bit, better of a pun when it comes to the Cowboys, whatever. If Zeke is the straw that stirs the drink, Dak Prescott is the 5-gallon water jug that holds all the water, all right? And he's like that hard plastic that, Walter White looked out for in Breaking Bad that just cannot be destructed in any way. That's who Dak Prescott is. And so for that reason, he's going to get paid. And the again, lesson that is indisputable is that, again, aside from Patrick Mahomes, and I want to put this up here one final time, aside from Patrick Mahomes, the next guy gets paid a little bit more than the last. That's the rule. That's the way business works. And so when you look at this, if the starting point is $40 million per year and $110 million guaranteed, well, you've got three dudes here in Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen in the calendar year 2021 that are lining up to get theirs next. We know that those teams are forward-thinking in the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills, so you cannot fall behind them or you're going to end up paying more money. That's the reality. And I'm going to leave this up here for one more second because people say, you can't pay Dak all this money. You can't, because if you pay Dak all this money, you're not going to have any money to pay anybody else. Look at that name at the top, all right? Patrick Mahomes. Look at that absurd value, a total value of $450 million, almost $500 million. Guy gets paid $45 million per year with $141 million in total guarantees. Did you see what the Kansas City Chiefs did after the Patrick Mahomes deal? Sorry, Mrs. Mahomes. They signed Chris Jones, Travis Kelce. I was told that when you sign a quarterback to a long-term deal, it cripples your franchise and you aren't able to do anything. Well, guess what? You still can. People like to say the salary cap is a myth. The salary cap is a real thing, obviously, but it is not this, it's not this end-all, be-all that's going to completely ruin your chances as an NFL team. Rodgers says Dak either signs a long-term deal this year or he is gone. His situation mirrors Kirk Cousins quite a bit, Dak being the far superior player, certainly. That is very true, very well said, and this became very obvious a year ago when the Cowboys franchise tagged him the first time. I promise you, if I was Dak Prescott, if you and me, right, it's just you and me talking now, if we were team Dak, right, like I'm Dak, you're my rep, or vice versa, whoever you want to be, I'm down to do whatever, I would be begging for the franchise tag because the franchise tag is going to set Dak Prescott's, I'm going to use that term again, market rate at an inordinate value, all right, at an inordinate value, and something that the Cowboys are not going to be willing to match. And the thing about this franchise tag is Dak Prescott, people used to say the guy won't even make $30 million per year. Dak Prescott just made $31.4 million. All right, that Dak's market rate now has been established. The franchise tag, and to the point made here, Kirk Cousins and his team identified that reality. And that reality involves some, willingness to take a risk, right? The risk being that you would get hurt. But the perception behind getting hurt is, right, if you get hurt, you're going to negatively impact your chances to get paid in a big capacity whenever that time ultimately comes. However, Dak Prescott did get hurt, right? And, God willing, he's totally fine when he comes back and everything. But by all measurements, it doesn't seem like Dak Prescott's, marketability from a contract standpoint has really been impacted. And why has it not been impacted? Because he is a baller. If you are a pass-fail pass quarterback in the NFL, it does not matter whether you are, coming off of an injury, because you represent the most important thing that an NFL team is looking for, and that is hope and stability and sustainability at the most important position in the game. Look at the 4 final quarterbacks remaining as we approach conference championship weekend, and we all hope Patrick Mahomes plays. Again, the 4 final quarterbacks remaining. On the NFC side, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, obviously legacy quarterbacks. On the AFC side, quarterbacks who are in their third years in Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. All 4 among the very elite when it comes to NFL quarterbacks in today's day and age, which is absurd when you consider Tom Brady's age. So what does that mean? Well, it means you need an elite quarterback to compete in the NFL. Dak Prescott is an elite quarterback. Is he as good as Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers? It doesn't matter. You don't have to have the very best quarterback, and you don't have to get hung up on, because Russell makes this much, whatever. Have you ever bought a car or bought a house or, I've been trying for like 3 months or however long it's been to get a PlayStation 5. I can't believe how ridiculous this is, but the market rate for the things you want are what the market rate is. And so if you want those things, you have to pay that price. If you want a franchise quarterback, the price is what it is because of market rate. Thus concludes the most easily agreeable person when it comes to this list. Adrian says Dak may not be the greatest, but he's enough to win a Super Bowl, no doubt. Sign the guy now. I think that is a good note to end on. Let's move on to the general. Sean Lee. All right. Sean Lee. Love Sean Lee. Sean Lee's the man. Sean Lee's great. Sean Lee is one of the, to say greatest Dallas Cowboys of all time is, like, we get hung up on this, right? Like Phillip Rivers retires this week, and, it's immediately, is he a Hall of Famer? And my personal opinion, I don't think Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer. I don't think Tony Romo's a Hall of Famer. I know that's a tough opinion to hear, but it's the Hall of Fame. Like the reason it's the Hall of Fame is there are good quarterbacks who don't get in, and that's an unfortunate thing, but that's the reality of the Hall of Fame. And so I don't know that Sean Lee is one of the greatest Dallas Cowboys of all time just because that list is so long. He is certainly one of the most admirable and one of the most inspiring and one of the hardest working, and he had the misfortune of playing his basically entire career in a decade riled in mediocrity for the franchise. And that really sucks because Sean Lee's peak, was incredible, right? That's just, sometimes it doesn't line up. And you look at, missed the whole 2014 season, the Des Catch year, and obviously was really great then when he came back and played with Rolando McClain and all that stuff. And there was a lot there. But now Sean Lee is... the shell of himself is not the right way to put it. We've seen, as recently as last year, I'm talking 2019, we saw some elite Sean Lee performances. His game against the Rams in 2019 at home when the Cowboys wore the Navy jerseys was awesome. He had that interception on Jared Goff, who, by the way, got paid a ridiculous amount of money. So Sean Lee, has still played some rather inspiring football as of late. The linebacker position in general is very questionable for the Dallas Cowboys, but they do have some commitments that they already have with regards to the future. They already have Jalen Smith and a long-term. So that's the thing. Like, you can't tell me Dak Prescott's not worth it when the Cowboys are out here handing out long-term contracts to a running back and to Jalen Smith. Again, a whole different subject entirely, but you technically have an option in Jalen Smith. You also have an option in Leighton Vander Esch tonight, goodness gracious. I'm pumped. I'm having fried fish for dinner. What can I say? This offseason is the time for the Cowboys to decide if they want to pick up the fifth-year option for Leighton Vander Esch. I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that, honestly. We've seen really great linebacker play from Leighton Vander Esch. I understand, obviously, the injury concerns. I think, it's possible the Cowboys are interested in the linebacker position near the top of the draft, right? Like, that makes sense. This, in 2018, we did videos here. We talked about this on the podcast network about how the linebacker position at the time might have surpassed the offensive line as the best position on the Dallas Cowboys. And I think that the genesis of that thought was fair because the offensive line clearly started to deteriorate, which we saw this past season. But the best unit on the Dallas Cowboys at the moment is the wide receiver group, right? The linebacker unit is maybe the worst on the defense as a whole. And that being said, it's still probably a better decision to let Sean Lee walk. Chris Killen says Sean Lee wasn't better than Dexter Coakley or Dat Win. That's an interesting argument. I kind of agree with that in a weird way. I could be pushed to agree with that is basically what I'm saying. The point here is, Sean Lee, thank you for your service. Love you so much, but it's probably time to move on. If you do want to be a coach, Sean Lee, we would love that, honestly. I think you would make a fantastic linebackers coach under Dan Quinn. I think that Sean Lee could certainly be a great defensive coordinator one day. There's a fantastic article from a few years ago now that The Ringer wrote. I believe Robert Mays wrote it. I don't want to get that wrong, but just Google Sean Lee, The Ringer, Matt Eberflus, and it just kind of detailed Sean Lee's life as a football player. And if you read that, it's a bit long, a bit worth your time. Curl up, get the old, tablet out, get a nice cup of tea later on the night and kind of sit and read this thing. It really details, I think, how Sean Lee's life already is very much like a coach. And so I could totally see him sort of adopting that way of life in the future. If he doesn't, certainly we all want him to have a great life. And we are very thankful for his contributions to America's team. But it is probably in everybody's best interest if the Cowboys do say goodbye. As noted, he did miss the entire 2014 season, has 14 career interceptions to his name, 521 solo tackles. He was a first-team All-Pro. That does get lost in the fold. Two-time Pro Bowl selection like Dak Prescott to this point in his career. But yeah, so, it is what it is. I see that we have some commenters who do not believe in Dak Prescott, so I trust that the commenters who know the truth will handle that. But by the way, we do want to give just a big-time thank you, love you to everybody who has recently subscribed to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. If you joined the stream a little bit late, I'm RJ Ochoa. We are Blogging the Boys. We are SB Nation's home for Dallas Cowboys content, the best Dallas Cowboys website on the web. And here we are talking about the Dallas Cowboys free agents to be and the ones that we think the team should, could, maybe, might bring back. I think Dak Prescott is playing for the Cowboys in 2021 under some capacity, even if that is the franchise tag, but we will see. Tyrone Crawford, Sean Lee, retirement candidates. Andy Dalton, I think, is playing elsewhere. Cam Irving is an interesting one just because the Cowboys did see some. Look, I'm not going to try to sit here and tell you that Brandon Knight and Terrence Steele were amazing. However, it is so rare that your tackle depth has legitimate NFL experience at such young ages. And so if we are to assume that Tyron Smith and Lyle Collins are both back in 2021, I think the Cowboys already have enough tackle depth. But if Cam Irving's back, I mean, I'm certainly not going to be upset about this. Joe Looney, Joe Looney's been awesome, right? And certainly was just an incredible godsend in 2018 when Travis Frederick dealt with Guillain-Barré syndrome the entire year. But the time has kind of come for Tyler Biadasz, and so that might be a decision the Cowboys have to make. Alden Smith was such an incredible story, his return to the NFL this past season, but probably playing elsewhere. Maybe that's a comp pick waiting for the Cowboys in 2022. That would be nice. Blake Bell, the Cowboys, I don't know, like that's a really interesting one to me because they've obviously got, another Blake and Blake Jarwin, and they have Dalton Schultz, who really, really just rose to prominence this past season. So I don't know that they need to keep Blake Bell necessarily. I think in general, this is more of a NFL-wide philosophical approach. I do think that we could see more one-year deals from players because a lot of guys obviously, played this past season on an expiring contract, on what was already a one-year deal. The season got very complicated very early on when the pandemic first hit. So I think we could see a lot of guys say, you know what, now that we know what we're dealing with, let's kind of one-year deal, prove it deal, really kind of set myself up for 2022 and hopefully cash out in a year where the salary cap bounces back. That would be nice to see. Raja says, why did we get rid of Byron Jones last season? Yeah, really, it still hurts. I don't know. I don't know why. I can't give you a good answer. Roger says, Dak, LP, Bell, Looney, Brown, the cheaper of Awuzie or Lewis, whichever of the restricted rights and exclusive rights free agents they want to keep. I think this is a good list overall. Adrian says, got to get younger. I agree. The Cowboys are fairly young, honestly, but that average is inflated, that average age by LP Ladisher. But let's talk about this secondary, all right? Chidobe Awuzie was the Cowboys' second-round pick in 2017. By the way, that 2017 draft class looks awful. I mean, just terrible 4 years later. Does anybody remember? Show of hands. Who the first-round pick was in 2017? Your clue is it was not TJ Watt. Taco Charlton, obviously not on the Cowboys. In the second round, they took Chidobe Awuzie. The third round, they took Jordan Lewis, who we'll talk about in a second. In the fourth round, they took Ryan Switzer, who everybody was pumped about. That kind of broke and got awkward. Xavier Woods was a pick in the sixth round. We'll get there too. So Marquez White, I mean, it was a very, very, very miss of a class for the Cowboys coming off of a 13-3 season. But Cheeto was a second-round pick that a lot of people were really excited about. And Cheeto is such an athlete and so athletic in a number of ways. And just we really haven't seen he really did seem, honestly, like he was primed to be the next number one corner for the Dallas Cowboys. Did something that I really admire. After his rookie season, he wore number 33, and then he said, you know what, number 24 is available. I'm not messing around anymore. I'm taking number 24 because Mo Claiborne left. And so I thought that was the beginning of something great. That was a bit of a whiff of an opinion. Cheeto's been okay, and I do think that the point is fair that the Cowboys might be in a situation where they're able to bring back one of them to Roger's point, the cheaper of Awuzie or Lewis, because the Cowboys are, you look at the cornerback position, Trayvon Diggs is the answer. And I saw Micah Parsons was mentioned as an option for the Cowboys with the 10th overall pick. By the way, with all these quarterback needy teams, like I said, it would be great if a bunch of quarterbacks went to the top 10. We would love to see that as Cowboys fans. Micah Parsons, fine. A lot of people like Patrick Surtain. And so if Surtain and Trayvon Diggs are your cornerbacks of the future, the Cowboys did re-sign Anthony Brown a year ago, but I certainly think it would behoove them to bring back one of Cheeto or Jordan Lewis because you're going to need those veteran bodies, and obviously seasons are dealt, injury blows as we certainly learned this past season, and so I would like to see one of them return to the Cowboys, Chidobe Awuzie or Jordan Lewis, but I don't know that both are playing for the Cowboys. If I'm forced to choose between Cheeto or Jordan Lewis, I'm probably taking Cheeto. Look, I don't like this logic, but Jordan Lewis did not play for a former Dallas Cowboys secondary coach and Chris Richard because his arms were too short or whatever you want to say, Chris Richard, that's fine. I don't totally subscribe to that, but I do view Cheeto as a higher ceiling, or maybe a higher floor is the better way to say it. Jordan Lewis has had a lot of great moments. Certainly, he's in the photo you're looking at is his fumble return, or his interception return, against the New York Giants in 2019. This was the Black Cat game. Everything went wrong after this, by the way. But so Jordan has had, I think, the flashier moments. You'll remember he had the turnover late in the game the year before in 2018 when the Cowboys beat the New Orleans Saints and nobody thought they could. That was a really fun time. Jordan has just kind of had those moments. He had an interception really early on in his career against the Denver Broncos. That was a terrible game as well. The Cowboys let Trevor Siemian destroy them. So while I agree that Jordan has had the flashes, I think Cheeto is a little bit more consistent. And so if I have to have a bridge, right, to the future that is Trayvon Diggs and whoever else, I think Cheeto is the guy that I'm taking in that capacity. I want to look at the secondary as a whole, but before we do, let's see right here. Chris says, in all caps, Chris says, get rid of all the DBs except CJ and Cheeto. On the cheap, go younger with the likes of Reggie. For what it's worth, Reggie Robinson, obviously a 4th-round pick of the Cowboys last year out of Tulsa, does seem to be a safety option exclusively. He did not play as much as any of us would have liked to see in 2020. But I think that the youth movement is coming. We're about to experience a renaissance of sorts in the secondary for the Cowboys, hopefully at least. But so I do think that is on its way. It is amazing that we already are 4 years removed from Cheeto and Jordan being drafted together. And you'll remember this class of Cowboys DBs in 2017. It was Cheeto, it was Jordan, it was Xavier Woods. They came in the Cowboys had gone 13-3, and they saw their entire secondary walk. Mo Claiborne walked, Brandon Carr walked, J.J. Wilcox walked, Barry Church walked. Remember, Barry Church went to the Jacksonville Jaguars, said, "Yeah, I think this team has way more talent than the Cowboys," and we all laughed and we're like, that's so stupid. And then the Jaguars went to the AFC Championship game. Look, I love Xavier Woods. I think we all have loved Xavier Woods for some time. And I interviewed Xavier at training camp 2 years ago now, and I found out he likes Big Brother and the challenge on MTV, and I think that's really cool. I like Big Brother and the challenge on MTV. Last night's episode was awesome. But, all that being said, things have really not worked out for Xavier Woods. And actually, Xavier Woods, to me, serves as a cautionary tale. I am a fighting Texas Aggie. I love Donovan Wilson, but I do not want to see the Dallas Cowboys just kind of rest on their laurels and say, we're good at safety because we have Donovan Wilson. You know why? Because they did this with Xavier Woods. That's what they did. And it didn't work out because now we're sitting here saying, you know what? This is an easy decision to let Xavier Woods walk. He played very poorly in 2020, and I remain of the mindset that his comment was not totally taken in the right context, but the comment about effort and how you don't give 100% on every play like that, just you've got to move on at a certain point. And hopefully Xavier Woods plays elsewhere and balls out. I'd love to see that, but I just don't think he's the option for the Cowboys at safety. I mean, it's unfortunate. It would have been nice if that had worked out, but it doesn't seem like it's in the cards. And this group as a whole, again, 4 years ago, the Dallas Cowboys drafted Chidobe Awuzie, Jordan Lewis, and Xavier Woods. People were so pumped about Xavier. If you followed the draft show, they kind of willed that into existence. All together, they have 13 interceptions between the three of them in 4 years. It's not all about interceptions. It's a point that we've maintained for a long time. Especially when Byron Jones was mentioned a little while ago. It's not all about interceptions, but this group has just been subpar. And, think about the last 4 years now, right? 2017 was a disappointing year for the Cowboys. 2018, they really battled back and got it together. And 2019 obviously was a disaster. And obviously 2020, they lost Dak Prescott. It's no coincidence, I don't think, at least as far as like life is concerned, just kind of picking on us. It's no coincidence that this entire secondary played most of their careers with the Cowboys under Chris Richard and played most of their careers with the Dallas Cowboys, to date at least, with the Earl Thomas rumors floating around. It was their rookie year. It was Christmas Eve of this group's rookie year when Earl Thomas chased down Jason Garrett in the bowels of AT&T Stadium, said, hey, if you ever get a chance, come get me. And so, I'm not trying to throw that out as an excuse for them. I'm just trying to say, from the jump, this was, never awesome, right? It it was okay. It was, it was okay. It's all good. Adrian says, why do we trade Ward to the Chiefs? That's right. The Dallas Cowboys did trade Charvarius Ward to the Chiefs. He has a Super Bowl ring. Like Mo Claiborne. Mo Claiborne got a Super Bowl ring with the Chiefs last year. I believe that interview that we had with Mo last year is on our YouTube channel. By the way, shout out to all of our new subscribers. Appreciate you. Love you. And if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe right here to the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. But yeah, I mean, it sucks that Charvarius Ward has looked good. Terrence Mitchell, another, there's a lot of cautionary tales. Byron Jones. The reality is the players the Cowboys have, I say invested in, but the Cowboys have chosen in their secondary have not worked out. Right? Like, I'll actually throw this out. All right. Who is outside of Trayvon Diggs? Okay. We have a question here, by the way, from Keek. Says, how many interceptions does Diggs have his first year? Had 3 interceptions his first year. To the point, if you're, obviously you're watching this, Chidobe Awuzie and Jordan Lewis and Xavier Woods collectively all have 13 interceptions in 4 full years with the Dallas Cowboys. Jordan and Xavier have 4. Chido has 5. Xavier Woods in his first season, Trayvon Diggs in his first season with the Dallas Cowboys had 3 interceptions. All of them against the Philadelphia Eagles, mind you. Xavier, I almost did it again. In every game that he has ever played against the Philadelphia Eagles, Trayvon Diggs has at least had 1 interception. Look at that. Boom. Fun fact of the day. And so let me ask you this question. If you're joining us live, if you're watching it later, you can just scream it out. Who is the last secondary player's jersey you had as a Cowboys fan? Like who's the last one? Of all the players that have played in the secondary for the Cowboys over the last, 10 or 15 years, all cornerbacks, all safeties, who is the last secondary player's jersey who you had? I have a guess while you kind of answer. I'm going to guess that your answer is Roy Williams. And maybe it was a 31 Roy Williams, not 38 when things got really weird. I think that's probably the answer. Maybe you bought a Mo Claiborne jersey when he was first drafted because the Cowboys had traded up and that was, really exciting and really fun. And he was a 6th overall pick and a really prominent class and he had the highest grade on their board since Deion Sanders and everything. Maybe you got suckered into that. I won't blame you if that was the case. Maybe you're one of the rare people who had a Brandon Carr jersey. But I'm going to guess the last secondary player's jersey who you had as a Dallas Cowboys fan was Roy Williams. Actually, Adrian says Darren Woodson. Raja says never. Raja, thinks I's buying the Romo jerseys and the Dak jerseys. Keek says Mike Jenkins. Oh my gosh. Also a number change, by the way. So, that hopefully you got the right one. But yeah, I mean, look, there's no secret that Darren Woodson has been the best secondary player for the Dallas Cowboys. By the way, we spoke to Darren recently around Christmas time here on the YouTube channel. So go back in our video feed and you'll see our interview with Darren Woodson. Had some really great stuff to say about kind of effort. At the time, there was some talk that the Cowboys should be tanking. Gave some really great insight on that, I thought. But yeah, I actually almost guessed Terrence Newman. That was going to be my guess. That's interesting, maybe. Chris Killen says, crazy how many ex-Cowboys have rings. Charvarius Ward, Damian Wilson, Anthony Hitchens, and maybe Cole. That's right. The 3 mentioned at first all won a Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs last year. Cole Beasley is playing in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs this coming Sunday. Yeah, I mean, it sucks. It also, you look at the success the Green Bay Packers have had. We did a video earlier this week about whether you should be worried about, the Packers having success without Mike McCarthy, etc. I don't think so. But the reality is you shouldn't be worried about Mike McCarthy, right? It was not a great first year. We all acknowledge that. But where you should be worried is this group of free agents. Let's take one more look at the whole free agent list, all right? Now, you just scream this out wherever you are. Dak Prescott, keep or let walk. He's keeping. All right, we're keeping Dak Prescott. We're not even wasting time. Tyrone Crawford, Sean Lee, letting walk. Andy Dalton, probably getting an offer somewhere else. Cam Irving, fine, let's keep him. Joe Looney, probably going to walk. Wish you all the best, Joe. Alden Smith, probably going to walk. Please give us a comp pick. Blake Bell, I'm fine bringing him back. LP Ladouceur, come on back, baby. Let's do it. Let's run it back one more time. Joe Thomas, you can never have enough versatile linebackers. Joe Thomas also really valuable on special teams. Fine, let's keep. I said that the corner I want to keep is Cheeto, so I'll keep Chidobe Awuzie. CJ Goodwin, different category of cornerback, special teams ace, so definitely keeping there. Justin March, very valuable special teams player, really good in the locker room, really great morale guy. I would like to keep Justin March. If Jordan Lewis leaves, it would suck just because he's been fun. And I think it would also suck because the team, Cowboys fans, a lasting impression impression of Jordan Lewis would be the awful headbutt that he had in Week 17 against the Giants, but kind of his own decision. Antwaun Woods, I think the Cowboys finally have to let Antwaun Woods walk. Back before the season when we did 53-man roster predictions, I left Antwaun off of mine. I got a lot of heat for that, but at the time I believed this, and I still kind of believe it now. I think the Cowboys kind of have a sneaky line of defensive tackle depth a little bit. Now, at the time, I was factoring Dontari Poe into that equation. That did not work out, to say the least. I tend to think he's not on this list, but I tend to think that Joe McCoy is probably a Cowboy, right? Like that feels like it has to happen, right? He's been sharing clips of himself working out on Instagram and stuff. So let's kind of hope that that's the case. So if you've got Joe McCoy, Tristan Hill was balling out before he got hurt this past year. Neville Gallimore really came on strong. So I think if you're the Cowboys at defensive tackle, I think you have enough options. Hopefully Dan Quinn finds somebody else. Obviously, if you can develop somebody like Grady Jarrett, it would be nice if you could do that with the Cowboys. But so for that reason, Antwaun Woods probably walks. Xavier Woods, happy trails, my friend. Wish you all the best. Noah Brown, Cedric Wilson. Obviously, the Cowboys have one of the best wide receiver groups in the NFL. Chris says keep Noah and said. I don't think that is going to happen. I think that maybe you can get one of them. I think Cedric showed enough. Because there was a point in time where Cedric Wilson was like cooking and even threw a touchdown pass, by the way. I think Cedric could be the apple of somebody's eye, right? Like I think that, that might be the one that hurt. That might hurt the old Corazon if Cedric Wilson leaves. Obviously, I'd prefer Cedric Wilson over Noah Brown, but I just think he might have an offer somewhere else. So let's just say the Cowboys keep one of the two. Let's hope that is the case. This was fun. We appreciate everybody who took the time to join us while we were live. If you watched it later, you have any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. I am at RJ Ochoa. If you want to shoot me an email, if that's more your speed, you can, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. You can always interact with us here on the comments as well. We'll come back after the fact to answer any questions that were lingering. Make sure to check out bloggingtheboys.com, your home for the best Dallas Cowboys coverage on the whole internet, the whole thing. Make sure you subscribe to the Blogging the Boys podcast network. We put out at least one episode every single day because we know that you need your Cowboys fix. And make sure to subscribe right here to the official Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Enjoy the conference championship games. I've got the Packers and Bills winning. I would love to see the Bills win the Super Bowl. Love for Cole Beasley to get a ring. That would be really cool. We'll be back for another midweek report next week. We'll have some more film stuff coming out. That about does it. So do me a favor. Have the absolute best day of all time. You know why? Because you deserve it. We'll see you next time.
Blogging the Boys.